Hey, let's talk about games. Good afternoon, my friend. Let's talk about games. Today we're going to be talking about Adeptus Mechanicus. Now, this game is coming out in November. This is a limited alpha build, a media build that I currently have at the moment, which gives me access to a couple of mid-level missions to show it off. So the game is a top-down tile-based turn-based game which has a specific flair and panache for squad customization and management. So many people will be thinking, hey, that sounds a little bit like XCOM 2, and it is of sort of that nature. The game itself, obviously, we're playing as the Mechanicus, worshipping the almighty Omnissiah, and the strengths of the game thus far that I can see really are that it sells it on choice. So, without any further ado, let's go on and talk about what choices we have as a player. Jumping onto the cohort tab up in the top of the screen here, you can see we have access to a fair few different units. We have 6 tech priests which form the core of our actual squad, and we also have a bunch of troops which can be deployed as reinforcements during the mission. So the lower 6 can be deployed straight away. These are each customized. We will go into the customization in a moment, but they will have their own skills, equipment, etc. And then you have the generic troops which are not such so customized, but they are there to provide some reinforcements. It obviously doesn't matter quite so much if a troop dies because they don't really level up, so they are more or less cannon fodder and cheap and easy supplies. So now let's go on to some of the customization that you actually get to have with one of these tech priests. If we click on one of them here, we have quite a bit of choice. You have 8 total augments which you can have for the character. This includes various weapons, various support items, bits of armor, as well as macadendrites and things of the sorts. And in terms of what the game offers, it is quite impressive. We have things like a power axe. We can make this guy into a melee, and note he also has a ranged weapon here on the side. We can give him different bits of armor which will give him different bonuses. We can notice a little issue here that's not displaying what the actual item does. And we also have access to lots and lots of utility within this game. Now, the weapons and support items here are only a fraction of what's actually available. There's about 4 to 5 times more than what we currently have access to here. I can see so on another screen, which we'll come to in a moment. Now, in terms of giving players meaningful choice, and that's really one of the most important things about a game like this, does it give you meaningful choice when you're making a character? I believe so, yes. There are lots of different ways to build a melee. There are lots of different ways to build a range. This is something really important for a game like this, where top-down squad management may not be the most exciting thing in the world, but if there is a degree of personalization, then all of a sudden you can get a little bit more emotionally involved with your tech priests. Hey, it's only natural, and you can make something that really feels like it's yours. So ways I've come up with already is there's lots of various tanking builds. You've got healing and utility builds. In that sense, you've got damage mitigation. You've got high mobility builds. You've also got damage sponging builds. All sorts of things you can do. In terms of weapons as well, there is a nice bit of variety. Each weapon doesn't just do damage. Some do physical, some do energy, some do pushback, some reveal information about a target. Some will cost a specific type of resource, which we'll come to later in order to shoot. This is the little cog symbols in the top right of the weapon along here, and all in all, I have to say this is very interesting as a system and quite rewarding as a player. Now, there is another layer of depth we also have access to in the disciplines over on the left here. If we click on this, we can see a bunch of different paths that we can engage in. This may range from being a little bit more tanky or summoning extra units to being a little bit more utility based or healing based, or even doing more critical hits and damage. And you can of course mix and match lots of different ones. Now, when you do this, you pick a piece of armor to bring you this bonus. So you can basically customize the visuals to a degree. They're all somewhat congruent, so it doesn't matter if you really mix and match. But what you end up with is someone with an array of passives that can help make this character into something that's going to complement their gear. And I think this is a really nice system to see. I really like it. I think it's pretty neat. Lastly, if we go over to the tech tree in the top left, we can bring up some of the things we don't have access to. Obviously, there are a lot of question marks, so there are a lot of things we do not know, but this gives you a little bit of an idea as to how much customization there is. What you'll notice is some of these weapons will be yellow. These will use a special resource to shoot, and some of them will be blue. They will do less damage, but they will also be free to use. You can, I believe, pay money to unlock some of these or use different resources. You can also unlock them by doing certain missions. Now, this is the weapons, this is the armor, and some of the utility items as well, which will give you extra things. We also have extra troops that we can bring on missions. Obviously, we have the Castellan robot that was featured earlier, and we have, well, just a lot of choice as a player. I'm very, very impressed. And as well as this, we can also customize our ship. Currently, we have an upgrade that can increase our cognition gauge max size by 2. So when it comes to upgrading your ship, let's think meta tactics here. So like resource management for your squad and things like that. Lastly, we have access to what I would consider to be the bard-like abilities, things that are going to give your characters party-wide buffs, so restore 3 health for every character, things of that nature, increase allies' energy armor, etc. Obviously, energy armor is going to do well against energy attacks. Now, that pretty much goes for the choice in terms of customization. I think there is quite a lot here, and I am quite impressed. So now it comes down to the choice of action, and I want to talk to you about the combat. Now, on a mission loading screen, what you'll see is we have access to a lot of different units that we can take. These are our core tech priests. These do not cost additional resources to take, so they are handy to take. But of course, if they get damaged during the mission, and this may consist of multiple combats, then you may end up in a pretty tough place. You can of course also put on extra units here to accompany them, but these guys will not spawn at the beginning. They will spawn later on in the combat phases, generally 1 at the end of each turn, unless you've, let's say, invested into spawning them faster. Let's load into the campaign screen and have a little look. Right, now this is the campaign navigation. This is where we come to go on a mission. You can see our squad in the bottom as well as their health, and you can go and simply investigate all the various tiles here. This is not the combat, this is nothing to do with that. Each of these symbols correlates with different things. We will head towards the healing symbol and try and do a fight on the way. As you go along, you occasionally get given choices. Now, in terms of the actual symbols and such, I have to say there may be some form of logic as to each one of these and what it does. On occasion, it will simply say, do you want to loot, pillage, run, or fight, etc. We pick a certain option. What this does is this increases the chance of an engagement, and when this bar fills up, some Necrons will wake up. We do get some extra cognition though, which is handy, some extra action economy. If we head over to the heal, you can of course explore the heal, and well, this is simply an area which you can choose to restock. If we continue our adventure, we will look for a combat, and what we will find, hopefully, will be some Necrons. Now, Necrons, there we go. Necrons are the primary opponent within the game. They are quite impressive, and there is an array of different abilities and units which make them interesting to fight against. Right, now we're loaded into a mission and in the middle of a mission. What I'd like to do is talk to you about the actual combat itself. The combat itself works on a turn-based initiative order, so we are currently operating this unit in the bottom left. We can move him to a particular tile within the blue zone, and we can do so with the view to shoot a weapon, although we do not have enough combat points or cognition points to operate this weapon. As you can see here, there are numerous cogs which are currently not highlighted. I can gain extra cognition by sending servo skulls to absorb it from the nearby sort of data nodes, and these are basically extra action economy. I can use them to do things like activate these claws, which will heal me, or I could use them to activate a weapon which will deal more damage. Of course, operating on an initiative order, there is a degree of, let's say, complexity to the game, and there is a degree of thinking required in order to perform well. As you can see, I just shot an energy weapon towards an enemy which has a moderate amount of energy armor, therefore I did not do a lot of damage. There is definitely a little bit of thinking to do within this game. Strategy and decision making in terms of the actual battle itself is very, very important. The game's difficulty is somewhat challenging, and if you are careless and reckless and not paying much attention, you will probably die, and that will probably make you a little bit sad. But this is important for games like this because it also places a very strong emphasis on the player's ability to actually make informed choices about what they're doing with their character. It becomes a little bit dull if you just do whatever you want and, well, you just walk through the mission without any difficulty. Customizing your weapons, customizing your characters and everything of the sorts is very, very important to a successful outcome. I have certainly noticed, oh dear, if we move out of combat here, he's going to get an opportunity attack, or is he not? We're okay. Let's take a shot. Damn. Now, servo skulls are also used to reveal energy or enemy information. So you can see now when I hover over him, because I've shot him, I have a little bit of information because of the gun that I used to shoot him. But I can use a servo skull to give me extra information, say on this character. So now I can find out what his armor values are, what's going to be dealing damage to him, and use that information to hopefully allow me to be a better player, or at least a better informed player while I lose. In terms of the animations, the actual audio, visual quality, etc., I think everything is of a adequate standard. You can zoom into a very cool looking camera position where you have a lovely focus here, which sort of has a blurry effect in the background. I think this is a particularly gorgeous view, although somewhat, I wouldn't say gimmicky, but very hard to actually play within this position. I find having to zoom out is almost mandatory. Everything works within this game. I would go so far as saying everything does what it says it wants to do, and everything works out as it should. At times I do feel the combat is perhaps not as riveting as it could be, although I also feel that that's partially a side issue of being skipped ahead to a squad that I'm not particularly attached to and not that emotionally invested, having not sort of grown them up since the days that they were a little fledgling, or whatever you call a baby tech priest. I guess just a baby. But the actual game itself does seem to be fluid and smooth, and I'm hopeful playing through a campaign with a series of tech priests will see me very immersed and invested into a squad, enough to actually make me know their names, perhaps know their combat abilities, what they're good at, what they're bad at, and make combat strategies around this. Now, a special notice needs to be given to the musical composer for this game, because I have to say, job well done, because you have absolutely nailed the music. It is very good, very lovely sort of techno drum and bass. I don't even know what to call it, but I absolutely love it. I think it's absolutely wicked. I also have to give them a little bit of praise for the cognition mechanic, getting the extraction points per different unit, per different mechanics for whatever you've invested in with skills. You could maybe get extra action economy via killing stuff. You could maybe do it via shooting stuff with certain weapons, maybe just with your servo skulls. There's lots of different ways to get the extra action economy, and the fact that it's then used to activate different abilities, I think is a very neat mechanic and something nice to see. Guys, I'd love to know what you think of the game. Does this look like something you're particularly interested in, or is this something you're on the fence about still? I'll be keeping track of this game, keeping you guys up to date, hopefully with some guides and walkthroughs once the game comes out, and I believe it's coming out in November, something for us all to look forward to. And I would say I think this game is somewhat more reasonably priced than the average 40k game. I believe this is somewhere in the £20 mark-ish, don't quote me on that, but somewhat more affordable than some. Wink, wink. Guys, have yourself a great day. See you soon.